Hey everyone, I'm about to do my grand Q&A. I do these every quarter. I try to answer any questions that you have about me, about my work, personal, professional, anything otherwise. I'll get to them. So for the next 1 hour, any questions that you have, drop them here and I'll answer them. Cheers. Just getting used to life after lockdown, really adjusting to this new normalcy. Because of course, for those of you who don't know, where I'm currently living, we've only just gotten out of lockdown properly. So the entire dynamics of the workplace, just work itself, is totally different. We've been locked down for so long, and not to mention also in terms of personal life, so just getting used to, life again out there and actually being out there. And of course, all the sort of changes that entails, that has been something that's been keeping me busy. Thank you very much. It was always really funny to get into sharing music publicly, because I generally like to share things that I know, at least on some level, that I'm competent at. And music has always been very private because I never truly got educated in music. I learned piano when I was really young, and then I stopped, and I've never really had a formal education of it. But I picked it up as I went through my schooling years. And so I've been playing it very privately. To me, it's always been quite a private thing. I really enjoy playing piano, especially in the dead of night. It's something I've done when I used to study, especially in university. I had this digital keyboard with me, all these different dorms I've been in. And I play because it really helps me de-stress. I find music, especially musical expression, to be something that is just sort of very intimate, but also truly something that's very emotive. It allows you to express yourself and release all this pent-up emotion that you might have. And so this has been a very private thing. All this to say, I've never really performed publicly. And the funny thing is, I would say I'm quite a confident person in terms of publicly expressing myself, but I've never really formally done it, at least through music. So it was a very daunting thing for me to do. But then I thought to myself, as a person who really loves to get out of my comfort zone, I decided really to just share, and then perhaps share that sort of emotive sort of expression that I believe music can truly capture way beyond words, just with other people, and maybe some people might relate to it. And I'm glad you enjoy it, because again, it brings me great satisfaction, and at least has given me the sense of closure and there's a motivation that all of this has not been in vain. At the moment, I'm actually reading this book from Steven Pinker, this cognitive psychologist from Harvard University. I think I've recommended his previous book, which was Enlightenment Now, and the current book I'm reading, his latest release, is this book called Rationality. I don't want to give away everything, because I think it is truly a fascinating book, a very important book as well, that I think all of us should really dabble a bit in. And it's really so insightful, but really the idea that he's putting out there is, us humans, we are born with the cognitive ability to reason. We are essentially, and we're meant to be, creatures of rationality. We're supposed to behave in rational ways, act with reason and strive ourselves closer to the objective truths. Yet despite that, if you look around just, yourself and the world today, on the news, on social media, you just see irrationality everywhere. We see it, of course, in many permutations in politics and finance, even just in the social fabric and the culture of our society today. And so what has happened? Why is it that we are capable of being rational, and we are supposedly creatures of reason, yet there is so much irrationality? And what Pinker has done with this great book is really looked at this, and also how we can get closer to rationality. Now, if you watch my most recent video on YouTube, and that's also one of the things I really looked at, the work of another psychologist, that's actually came to the conclusion that most of our unhappiness really at its core comes from irrationality. I myself, if you've also seen some of my work, my personal research, and those are the things I put out there, for example, my recent TED Talk, I see it as well from a similar perspective, where I think the current crisis of our time is really a crisis of reason, a crisis of meaning as well. And so this book by Steven Pinker, Rationality, is one I think that's so important, that really helps us dive into it and hopefully become what we're meant to be, what we're supposed to be. Wow, what a question. Well, I think I will disappoint some people by revealing that I am not part of the 5 a.m. club, which some of you have actually asked me before. I've tried it. It doesn't really work because I sleep very late, so if I was part of it, literally I'd be zombified by now. But I generally wake up at 7, and I suppose on a very consistent way, what I generally do is I run. I enjoy running in the morning. It really keeps me quite energetic throughout the day. I'm not sure what's happening on a physiological level, but I've heard it helps you really release certain really good hormones that just keeps you pumped, and that's the thing I usually do every morning. And then usually I'm showered and I'm off to work, and because throughout the day usually I have to visit quite a few places, so it's just about me trying to build a routine of the things I have to do if, let's say, I don't have meetings, and the places I have to be. And that's really it. Very much in the office and on the go, and oftentimes in meetings. And generally I'm done with my work day by 6, and then usually after that I would exercise, and after that I'd be really engaging my own personal life if I don't have a work thing. So that's really it. Nothing too extra or special, so some of you might be expecting that. But I suppose the key thing in my approach to it really on a daily basis is having more or less a systematic approach, like a routine approach. Some of you might know me quite well from my work, and you know this. I like to try and systemize my life in terms of how I approach my work and my daily routines and daily things I do, and also make time to do the personal things I want to do, such as my hobbies, and also, of course, seeing people as well, my friends. And I think that's very important. It's very important to really, have kind of this certain level of a system to how you live so that you can live efficiently. But of course, much of life is uncertain. Things do come up and things do happen. And when they do, I also see it in a very sort of exciting way as well. I think that's a very difficult question, and I don't really know your life circumstance and what you're going through. And there might be many things, many factors at play that needs to be considered. Nor would I want to give an advice like that. But with that said, I think, generally my take is, with all things being equal, I think education is very important. I think it's very valuable. I personally think that most of us, we would assume that the purpose of education is to prepare us for life. But I'd take the opposite sort of approach, where I think the whole purpose of life is actually education. I think, being educated, having the privilege to actually get an education, whether it is to go to school or perhaps through books or any other means to actually educate yourself, to gain knowledge, is something that's truly very valuable, because it truly shapes how you see life, it shapes how you experience life, and also perhaps in many ways it also truly provides many opportunities to you. It fundamentally changes you. So we're not just talking about generally opportunities in the sort of economic sense, in the sense of advancing in life, but it's also very much about how you experience life itself. It allows you to truly perhaps develop a sense of meaning in the many things that you experience, a sense of understanding. I think that is truly valuable. And generally talking about school as well, I think a lot of people, especially young people, they might not see the point of it, given that a lot of it feels like you are learning things that might seem irrelevant to you, at least at this point. But to me, again, you never really know these things that you're learning, these general things perhaps, when they would actually come and influence your life in very significant ways. And more importantly as well, to actually put yourself through that process, the sort of self-discipline and the skills that you develop in undertaking things like that in the educational process. These are things that would shape you, that would provide you this sense of character building for the future as well. So I think education is very important. I think it truly is a privilege if we are able to actually gain access to education in any form. Yeah, definitely. I think there is so much about me that people will be surprised to learn. And that's the thing. I've actually had this conversation recently with a friend of mine, and I was just saying to my friend that it's so rather strange and quaint that we tend to think today that we can almost instantaneously search and just find out about somebody, whether through social media or Google or wherever. But this idea that, as with everything else that we're so used to now, we can get that instant data, and at the same time it comes to getting to know somebody, and that's furthest from the truth, because the fact is, and I truly believe this, that the human character, perhaps you want to get very spiritual, the human soul, is so full of complexity that you can never truly capture and quantify who a person really is just in data or in a social media profile. There's so much more. There is mystery. And the funny thing is that we're so used to just the instantaneous aspect of just how we can get data today. We think we should get the data of someone easily. That's something we should be able to do. But I'd say we shouldn't, because there's actually a lot of beauty and mystery in actually taking your time to get to know somebody. And that's something that's very beautiful, to unravel that mystery. But yes, people will be very surprised. There's a lot of things about me that cannot be conveyed in social media. Many people who've actually met me in person, they're actually surprised to find out things about me. Same thing with really other people too. So I think it is a fallacy and really a mistake to think like that, to assume that people are who they are online, because all we see is just one aspect of their character, and perhaps sometimes even the furthest aspect from who they really are. And I think that's something that we should think about. That is actually a very good question and a very deep question, and I say that because it is one that I often think about, and it certainly is a question I often discuss with my partners and my team. And I say the way to think of it, and to see it really, for me at least, is that we hope to build Empirics into the Library of Alexandria. And I say this is a great reference. For those of you who don't know, the Library of Alexandria is a great library that once existed. And, a place where people had access to these different scrolls and these manuscripts and these books where they can really build their knowledge. And we're trying to do the same thing, but digitally. But again, targeting at the experiences and the experiential knowledge of people from around Asia, but maybe even one day, much wider than that. And really a place where people can go and really tap into the collective experiences of people from around the region and across all these social scientific fields. And a place where people not only can take this passive road of consuming this information, but also contributing to this Library of Alexandria as well. And so this is a very ambitious thing, really, this resource that we hope to keep open access as far as we can do that. And so a place where people can truly build a better collective knowledge together. And it isn't easy, because again, we are working very hard to accumulate all the collective insights that we currently have from all these thousands of writers from around the world. And it has been very interesting to work with them. Again, with the accumulation of information, we also hope to build this library in a way that is also very convenient and also very sort of intuitive. Technologies that allow us to really curate the sort of information knowledge that you are looking for as a person who's visiting, and really bring it to you in a very direct and easy way, such that people will see Empirics as a place where they can get enlightened, and truly this knowledge project for the world that we can all build together. But also beyond that, one of my greatest ambitions is really to see more contribution not only in that digital sphere, but also really in the publishing sphere. Because I personally think that much more can be done, especially in terms of the sort of knowledge media in Asia. We do have a lot of books from great writers, but there could be much more. And I hope we can really tap into that. I'm a firm believer that you need both. The digital sort of knowledge you see on the web page is great, but I believe there's so much more value in the long text medium, where you have an entire book format. You can present so much more. And I hope we can actually tap into our network and publish the books from some of the great writers that we have, and really bring that to the world as well, and truly see how much we can contribute in really bettering human understanding together. That's really it. Bettering human understanding through the experiences of really this collective. That is our ambition. Yes, still very much so. And I'm actually quite active in this area nowadays, especially in regards to my work. But in terms of my sharing, I haven't really shared much, because I've actually shared a lot in recent times on my YouTube, on my stories even, and I don't really have much to add. So if you're interested in some of my thoughts and my opinions and my sentiments, you can still find that on my YouTube channel, or you could also find that, I believe it's been highlighted as well on this profile. And I think, it is very fascinating. We live in such exciting times. There's certainly a lot happening now, a lot of really shocking and surprising things. Yet, as I say that, as shocking as it is, it's also not anything new. And this is what I'd add. the subject itself might be a bit different, but if you were to look at the history of finance, or in other words, financial history, you'll see that, such developments have happened time and time again, exciting developments, and again in history, different things, but it's happened again and again and again. And the very interesting thing is human behavior has more or less been the same. Again, the market sentiment is a reflection of the human zoo, how we behave, and that's not really changed much through history. So as much as we like to think that, we've changed through time and we're very different from our, forefathers, we aren't really. We're very much the same. I truly believe that there is a lot of amazing technological developments from this, and certainly undeniably so. At the same time, the market behavior is something that I'm more interested in than the actual substance of technology, because it has been a crazy year, and not just for this, but also for other things, like, of course, one thing I've talked about a lot, the meme stocks, and generally just stocks in general. You've just look at the results in the last 2 years. It's just been this massive explosion. And of course, a lot of financial analysts and professors in economics, they would have a lot to share about this. Really, this perfect storm of course, COVID and where we're at, and also new developments in technology has allowed this sort of explosion of these crazy financial developments. So yeah, it remains to be seen, but I'm very much excited, and if I have anything more to add, I will. I get asked this a lot, actually. There isn't really a secret recipe. I generally, yes, I do sleep very late, and this is something I developed previously when I used to work as a barrister at my past job. I literally don't sleep, but nowadays it's really just been a sense of excitement just for everything that's happening in my life, in my work. It's really kept me up, and so oftentimes it is work directly, but other times also just really the other things I get myself involved in. And yeah, there isn't really a secret, I think. It's just I don't really feel tired generally in that sense. So I've never really needed caffeine. I'm not much of a coffee person, but I do have a little ritual that could be the reason why I have so much energy in my blood. So besides exercising, the thing would have to be tea. I really do enjoy tea. I brew my own tea. I actually buy tea leaves, and of course I have some different types of tea. So I'm a massive fan of tea. Oftentimes you see in my Instagram stories, in the late at night, I'm having tea. And that's really a thing that may have contributed to just overall sense of energy that I just have, the zest that I have. But other than that, I can't really say what it is. Other than that, really just a general excitement of things. And that's really it. Yes, I totally understand the plight, and I truly believe that the human attention span today is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And of course, look at the technology around us, the distractions that we have, understandably so. But I think the key is, and this is really my approach, is how you approach reading as an experience, how you set your expectations to it. Because, you can, of course, today perhaps, watch Netflix, go on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, and, a lot of entertainment there. And of course, we know those are usually instantaneous entertainment and distraction. Now, a book isn't like that. It isn't very much about the instantaneous sort of feedback of information that you get. The way I see a book is it's a very introspective sort of exercise. Why I love reading is because beyond just consuming what's being presented to you, and if you were really just to look at the consumption of information, it is very inefficient. It takes time to go through one chapter that could be essentially about one particular concept only, and yet you can easily watch a video about that concept, that said concept. However, although it's inefficient, that's where the beauty of the book is. It might take you a whole chapter to understand the point, but based on yourself and really your own interpretation of what you're reading, you also get these additional introspective information or these revelations that you might have from reading. So oftentimes when I read, it's also quite insightful in a personal way, where as I'm reading, I start to have these, these certain thoughts about other things related to what I'm reading, that I'm relating from my own experience, my own life. And that's something you can't really get from, just general internet media, from Netflix, let's say. The way I see it, the comparison is really with general internet media in terms of, videos and shows, whatever. They're just feeding you information up front, and that's it. You're just told what to think. Whereas when you're reading, it's really about also critical introspection that's going on. That's something that's very beautiful. It takes time. But, if you are reading something that you really want to really, explore, maybe a book that you really want to read, or a certain area of life that you're, been thinking about a lot, so you got a book about it, then certainly you would see the value of it. And rather than think, oh, this is taking a lot of time, then you might enjoy that sort of exercise, that sort of experience I've just mentioned. Great question. I'm glad you enjoy it. I don't really have a specific approach to my YouTube channel. All this really began at the peak of lockdown, and I sort of got bored, and a lot of my close friends would know me as a person that's really opinionated, and I've got all sorts of things in my head. So I really opened this avenue to share. So in the spirit of that, and very much in its philosophy, it's just me ranting. So it used to be, especially during peak lockdown, I could do perhaps 2 or 3 videos a week. And again, for me, very much is just about me turning on the camera and just ranting what's really in my head. And that's really been the way. I want to be as authentic as possible. So really, that's it. What's at the top of my mind. I don't really edit it much, as you've noticed. It's just very raw. I've heard feedback I could do much more with it, but again, as much as time permits. But I'm glad you enjoyed. I want it very much to be as if that we are actually sitting down, having tea or wine, coffee, and just talking about some of these interesting questions of life that very much reflects my work at Empirics. So in that vein, perhaps seeing it through that perspective, you might understand my sort of haphazard way of actually making these videos. And truly, the editing, not much. The entire shoot to releasing usually takes me about 30 minutes. I tend to do them after work sometimes, and most of the times back then, also at a later night when I was done with my day. And that's really been it. Going forward, I think you can expect very much, at least as a commitment, a video a week where I'll just talk about some of these interesting things that's in my mind, and that's really it. Well, work at Empirics has been keeping us quite busy, especially me. As many of you know, it's been quite exciting. The past few months we've released the Empirics AI, which is our AI that's able to curate the knowledge that we have at Empirics, and we presented that in a podcast format. And that's been quite an interesting experiment because it's been quite well received in many countries beyond our expectations, so really revealing this sort of human-AI dichotomy. The next exciting evolution of that we're currently working on, although we've not publicly announced it, is actually releasing an app version of the AI that we have. So what you can picture very soon is really this sort of Siri-esque context where you can actually talk directly to our AI, and it'll be able to curate the knowledge from our Empirics database and basically give you an empirical take on any questions that you might have. This is something that we're currently developing, and it's something that we're very excited about, the next step of the Empirics AI that we have. And also beyond that, we are working on releasing our very first compendium, the Empirics Compendium Volume 1, which essentially will be this amazing tome containing some of the most brilliant write-ups from some of the greatest experts that currently write for us from all these different fields, giving you this amazing insight in these different areas, this one book of knowledge. It'll be in hardcover, so in print, but also digitally available as well. And that's something that we're very excited that we've been working on. And beyond that, in the publishing sphere as well, we have currently